So I appreciate everybody joining us today. The topic today is about AI as it relates to ticketing. And in our world, that is going to be voice AI. We come from the voice world. RingLogix is a longtime voice company. We sell through partners. So we got, a number of partners out there who resell our UCaaS and SIP trunking services. And then recently, at the beginning of this year, we added voice AI agents after a couple of years of what I'm going to call research and development. We released a platform that we think is one of the, call it best in the industry in terms of the quality and the outcomes that we deliver. My name is Wayne Lant. I'm the VP of Operations and Success here. So what I'm going to talk about is things that I think are real world experiences that you guys have because one, I've got a lot of partners that I talk to who have implemented voice AI internally, and they told me a bit about what they've done, the benefits that they've received. But I'm also, responsible for our tech support and customer service teams and engineering teams. So when I talk about, these things, I'm talking about my experience over a number of years in this role and other roles where I've dealt with some of the painful things that we all who manage service desks have to deal with from time to time. So what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about those service desk inefficiencies, what voice AI agent actually does, and a little bit about what it is, where this kind of fits into our world. And what we're really talking about is the operational aspects of this and how it fits into the things that we do from day to day. And then we'll get a little bit more into how to get started. So we do have a follow-up webinar that's going to get a bit more hands-on after this. So I'm going to give you some homework at the end of this. And then if you're interested in kind of continuing the conversation with us, you come to the next presentation. And what we're going to actually do is talk about how you go about building out a voice AI agent for a couple key aspects of how you can operationalize a tech support service desk. And so you'll see a little bit about the framework we're going to use there. For today, we're going to talk a lot about how to think about this in terms of it fitting within your environment and the business reasons or the business cases on why and how you would implement this. But I want to first start with just the call it aspects of running a team here. When you're running a service desk team, there's a lot more to just ensuring that the tickets are well managed. You've got people transition in and out of teams, right? So we got some new people, we've got some experienced people, we've got different processes, we've got different tools we use. And that creates a very different environment. Although we deal with a lot of the same issues, everybody's environment or the things that they deal with can often be very different from day to day. And so some of the things that we all kind of deal with here is the intake of a new ticket often involves, or I shouldn't say often, involves asking questions, understanding what the issue is, and then asking follow-up questions to ensure that all of the proper information is gathered so that every ticket is documented properly. Well, people don't always do those things in the right order, the right steps. They skip steps. They don't ask the right questions, right? So every ticket can look a little different. And then probably one of the more frustrating things, because there's actually real costs associated with this, is your really good techs can be stuck working on really low level, low complexity problems. Those really good techs are often your highly paid techs, right? So if I've got a highly paid tech working on a very easy to resolve non-complex problem, that's an inefficient use of my resources. So we think about this in terms of how, that develops into a situation where if I've got a larger team, I've got a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of costs that get buried within that. And then, of course, we all manage our business a little differently, but we do generally see where there are top clients, right? Everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, lots of people have what I'm going to call a standard that if you're over a threshold, you're a top client, and top clients often get a special level of treatment. Well, when they get the same level of treatment, usually that occurs accidentally, and they often notice that the treatment that they're getting doesn't align with their expectations. And then there's things like the call quality or the quality of the call in the customer's eyes is often dependent upon who picks up the phone. Um, the other thing to consider as a call major challenge that we all go through is we often don't find out about bad calls until the client gets upset and tells us, right? And some of the times they don't get upset and tell us, they just get upset, and that obviously can have a different sort of ramification. So we look at voice AI agents as a way to automate some of these things to help us gain efficiencies, but also to improve on the overall customer experience. So when we use an AI agent, the advantage here is we get the same structured set of questions at ingestion, right? In the same order every time, 24/7, right? Weekends and nights, it all flows the same way. And then, of course, when we've got the opportunity to have our agents taking a portion of our calls, we free up our technicians. So the technician's time is very valuable relative to the agent's time, AI agent's time. I want to be clear that I'm not confusing human agents and AI agents. So our AI agents cost less than a human on a per minute, per hour, per week, per month basis. So the advantage of having a tier one deflection is that our lower cost agent can be working on that, but still following the same structure, providing the same, maybe even better level of guaranteed quality at the outset. And then we also get this opportunity where every caller gets the same fast response. So we don't have to worry in this world about people sitting in queues or getting frustrated and abandoning the queue because the agent picks up automatically. We're not constrained by our resources here. We can have I'm going to call multiple agents, technically not how it works, but you got an army out there answering phone calls and taking those tickets and recording those tickets. Critical issues also get treated faster. One of the nice things about an agent is you can build this agent with a concept of a workflow that understands when things should get escalated, but agents can also understand some of the vocal cues and understand where somebody may be upset. And there's an opportunity to take somebody who's already arriving at your doorstep upset and moving them directly to an escalated path. So when we look at deploying these things on an operational basis, there's a few key areas. The tier one help desk triage is a popular one because a lot of tickets or a lot of calls fall into this bucket. But we do have, and in fact, I think this is probably, if I had to say, when we first started doing this, the majority of interest started in after hours and overflow coverage, because a lot of our MSP partners, they did not staff for 24/7, but they wanted to be able to respond to things 24/7 and escalate to a human when it truly was an emergency, as opposed to just having somebody available to always answer the phone. And then, of course, ticket status, right? We get a lot of calls for things that are asking, or I shouldn't say things. We get a lot of calls from people who are asking for the status of a particular ticket. Well, that information is simply available in the PSA. We're just having a human, when this happens, confer the information from the PSA to the caller. And the reality is, a voice AI agent can really make that information available to the caller in a much more rapid basis. The caller gets what they need. If they do have additional questions, there's always a path to move them into a direct conversation with an individual. And I've talked a little bit about escalations. And again, one of the things that I think most people miss in this is the tone of the conversation, the vocal cues. They tell us whether that may need an escalation, but there are conditions too. So a condition could be network outage, right? Network outage immediately has an escalation process. So the nice thing is you get to decide what those escalations look like. What is the conditions that they need to be immediately moved to an escalation process. Dispatching scheduling. So this is something a lot of people don't think about. They certainly think about it on the medical side, but on the MSP side, you may have customers that you are frequently making on-site appointments with. The voice AI agent does have the capacity to schedule that time, meaning a caller calls up, asks for availability, can read a calendar, understand what the availability is, and book or even rebook or reschedule those appointments. We don't do this quite yet today, but coming soon is voice outreach or voice outbound calling. Right now, the service is inbound. You can text outbound, but inbound calling or outbound calling is slated for a little later this quarter, where the idea would be, I've got a renewal that's due. Well, I don't necessarily want my people to call on every renewal or billing. I've got a team that calls out for delay for accounts receivable, and perhaps I want that handled by the voice AI agent. So those are a couple of what I'm going to call the majority of cases that we've seen. And when you start to think about this, I think there's some interesting metrics that help us understand a little bit about how this may apply to the business or bring some value to the business. Inefficiencies are largely what we're trying to address here, but we can't forget that the customer experience is also part of the problem. But when we look at inefficiencies, we've got a fair number of, and in this case, you guys are going to get the slides, the complete deck. So I'm not going to necessarily go through where the research came from. There's some notations in the slide. You guys can see this. But this is, some details about our industry that will tell you a little bit about the kinds of calls that we generally get. And 30% of the service desk tickets tend to be simple things like password resets, account access resets. So that translates into a monetary value. I think it was Forrester did this one. The average fully loaded cost to just take care of a password reset, $70. Fully loaded meaning your benefits. It's not just the hourly wage; it's all the benefits, the cost of keeping an employee that get rolled into that. So your mileage may vary on some of this stuff, but I think it's good to understand a little bit about the structure and what industry resources tell us. Total tier one volume tends to be in the 40 to 60% range. The interesting thing about tier one calls is most of them are routine, pretty repeatable, and very low complexity. And this is where we see a lot of opportunity to automate. When we get into these routine, repeatable, low complexity things, that's where the agents tend to really shine. Again, this is your mileage may vary kind of concept here. The core of this is we're having an agent handle what a human has handled, right? And that means that a certain portion of what this human is handling is coming at a cost to the organization. So if we have an organization where we get 2,000 inbound calls a month for a 10 technician MSP, that's pretty standard. It's generally, it's actually probably a little light relative to some other metrics. But if we call it 2,000, that puts us in a place where we'd say a certain amount of those minutes that the person would be on the phone are addressable by an AI agent, right? Somewhere between 1,750 to maybe 3,000 of those minutes are addressable by an AI agent. And that yields some level of costs, right? So the cost for a technician to handle those calls that are addressable by the AI probably somewhere between 600 and $1,200 ish roughly, if we're using a very low cost metric. So $20 an hour is what this was used to configure this out. However, that $20 an hour probably is artificially low, and it is not a fully loaded. But I would suggest that if you're thinking about deploying these internally, I would go to our website and we'll drop the link here into the chat. But at ringlogix.com/AI-ticketing-agent, which is a bit of a mouthful, which is why we're dropping the link in there. There's a calculator. You can kind of do your own math, right? How many calls per month? How many of those calls do we think are addressable? What's your cost, right? So thanks for dropping that in, Harry. But the concept here is relatively simple. We got a certain number of calls, a certain number of minutes associated with those calls can be addressed by an AI agent, and that offsets the cost of a human who is answering those calls. Okay, we're going to get into a little bit about how agents work, and I see a couple familiar faces that I know have been to some of our previous webinars. You guys have probably seen some of these slides before, because I think really the way to think about this is agents in concept are actually quite simple, right? They talk, right? But the talk has to be natural, has to sound conversational. We've all, and I'm going to throw United under the bus because they lost my luggage and I had to wait 3 days. So I feel like I'm sort of justified in throwing United under the bus. Well, I had to call United's baggage handling several times, and they use a voice AI agent. And my God, the experience was horrible, right? It would pause, long pauses. It would restart the conversation. It was just all over the place. Fortunately, that is not an experience that we all have to be confined to, right? United had a very bad implementation. I can tell you a little bit about probably why I think they might have had a bad implementation in a little bit. But a lot of this is the underlying tech, as well as a little bit about how this is implemented. But the reality is a well-implemented solution with the right underlying tech makes this a very natural conversation. Agents also need to know things. In our world, an agent needs to know possibly the hours of the company, probably needs to know something about particular types of issues that might be that a customer might call in on, potentially what questions are associated with each of those issues, so it can get some additional information or potentially even present information to that caller to help them through that issue as well. So how an agent knows things is based upon the information that we decide to give it. I won't go into the details on the know and the do in this presentation, but I think this is we'll have some hints around how to give the agent information effectively in our next webinar. Because if you're on target with that, cool, it's a great experience, right? The agent gets what it needs, when it needs it, how it needs it, and there's not a lot of latency. However, if you're not on target with that, you can introduce latency. You can introduce things that are going to take the agent a bit off course, where it maybe hallucinates a bit or combines information that don't belong together. So we'll talk a little bit about how to accomplish that in a much more smooth fashion, so that the user experience is really good. Um, how agents do things is a kind of fun discussion, because um, there's a lot of magic that happens here. There's a lot of people out in this market who sell voice AI agents to receptionists. They can talk. They know some things. They may not know a lot of things, because sometimes there's some constraints, or there's not a lot of targeting with the knowledge, meaning they just give you scraped information from some links, and that may be sufficient for some basic stuff, but it doesn't really provide a full understanding for an agent to do more sophisticated things. When you talk about doing, this is where a lot of the magic can kind of happen, because we're talking about third-party systems. Third-party systems can be your phone system. Third-party systems can be SMS. Third-party systems can be a CRM. In our case, third-party systems a lot of times going to be PSAs, could be calendars. It could be all sorts of other things that sit within our environment that help our agent do the things like schedule something, log a ticket, create an appointment, those kinds of things. So it's probably helpful to understand just a little bit at a high level. What is the flow? This is a flow for us who are looking at an agent for customer service or support. Inbound call comes in, right? Generally speaking, we're going to have a caller verification. Caller verification would be something like, I give you my email, and I do a dip into your ticketing system or PSA, and I say, okay, I recognize who that person is, right? So now when I recognize who that person is, I go to the next step, and that's intent and issue gathering, right? This is where, oftentimes you'll hear the words conversational flow occurs. Conversational flow is about information gathering, information exchanging, potentially, and then the doing part, right? The ticket creation in our case could be ticket lookup, depending upon the use case. But I think just sticking with a theme of somebody calling in with an issue, ticket creation is most likely going to be, one of the do's. Could be also, send an email, send a text, and call it a flare up. So all sorts of things that I think we can accomplish here when we have the right understanding of how to best utilize tools and the right technology to maximize the use of tools. So tools we talked a little bit about, knowledge we talked a little bit about. I'm going to kind of go past this slide, because I think it's probably it's something that would just repeat a couple of the things I've already said. I think it's important to understand native integrations into your voice AI agent is extremely important. So ConnectWise, Autotask, Halo PSA, SuperOps, Synchro, those are the out of the box integrations we have. Zendesk, Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, also out of the box integrations that we have as well. And we have the flexibility to work through a variety of integrations, even custom integrations using webhooks and APIs. But if you're into tools like N8N or Make or things like that, we also have some kind of unique integrations with those tools as well. Now, earlier I told you about my story with United. So what makes for a good conversation? This is probably the thing that I think when most people think about, oh, should I even try this? They pause here, like, I gotta know this is a right experience for my customer. I don't want people calling in and hearing this, call it intermittently broken agent. They're not going to like that experience. And so I think it's important if you're looking at putting these into your own environment that you have a solution that does have the capacity to deal with what is often conversations are messy, right? So knowing that conversations are messy, we need something that can handle this messy environment, something that responds quickly. That chat agents have been around now for a little bit, and people I think use those, have pretty decent experiences if it's done well. The problem with chat agents, though, is there's this latency, right? So the example I would give is if you're texting me something, you don't think twice if I don't respond for 20 minutes, right? It's kind of natural that you would expect that, I'm going to respond at some point, but there's no need to respond in the same way that if we were involved in a conversation and I just stared at you blankly for 30 seconds, you'd be wondering, like, what happened? Did you hit a major glitch in the system there? So it's important for an agent to have, sub 250, sub 300 millisecond response, and that there is this natural not talking over. So what can happen is I'm speaking to the agent. The agent doesn't know that I'm still speaking, and then the agent starts talking. So an understanding of when the conversation is really ended or when I've paused. Let's say I'm giving you my account number. I may pause to look at my account number to read it off to the agent. Perfectly good example of maybe a more extended pause that the agent has to understand. Oh, that's a pause. That's not a break in conversation. And then it has to filter out the background noise. I've been in an environment where I got 200 people in a room at a conference where I've also got a conversation going with the agent. Crazy to think, but my agent knew um, every word that I said. It didn't pick up any of the background noise. That's what you want because there's no telling what environment your customers are calling from. And then, this comment here about reads the room. This is vocal cues. There's call it a different term for it. I think it's called porosity cues. But the point of that is it's I'm going to use Jamie. Jamie calls me up and Jamie says, "What are you doing?" Well, that's a kind of benign question, right? If Jamie calls me up and goes, "What are you doing?" Well, there's a same words, right? A lot more emotion, a lot more intent in that I need to understand to really understand what she's trying to convey to me. And in the same way, a voice AI agent has to pick up those same sorts of cues to understand really what this person is saying. And they have to remember the context for the length of the call. And then when do they hand off for a human? There's a lot of times this is a business decision and not so much a tech decision, but knowing that handoff is smooth is super important. Knowing that handoff can be both warm or cold. Cold handoff is just I'm dropping the call off at the door. You have it. You're done. Warm handoff is I'm going to give you a summary of the call before I drop from the call. So in our world, and if it will, and again, I don't want this to be a selling of our service, our systems. This is hopefully for people to be able to learn and take what they learn from this and go do whatever they want. Of course, I'd love for you to come work with us, but if you aren't or you decide not to, I think there's just a couple suggestions I would have. Multimodal audio native LLM. The idea for a multimodal audio native LLM to me is almost a requirement because this is where things fall apart. I'll use United again, and I'm just going to keep picking on them because anybody who loses my baggage for 3 days, I feel like I am totally entitled to pick apart everything they just did. Chances are they used a text to speech conversion in this process, which adds latency. So what happens in a call is call comes in, the speech happens via audio. The audio gets converted to text. It gets submitted to the LLM. The LLM breaks that down, then understands what it's supposed to do, then responds with text that gets converted back to audio. All of that adds latency. Multimodal audio native LLM, the audio is baked right into the LLM, and then that's where you see the speed. That's where you see the low latency, and that's frankly where the natural conversation comes from. Voice activity detection is where we address this factors of talking over each other and not understanding the natural turn taking that happens in a conversation, and some of those porosity cues that I mentioned, or vocal cues that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so how to begin? So, as I said before, we have a platform. Love if you wanted to work with us. You can build it yourself. Let us build it with you, kind of up to you. If you're going to build it yourself, like I said, you don't have to work with us. But I do think there's some common things that we'll talk about on our next webinar. And the common things have to do more with how do we get prepared to be able to do a voice AI agent, or to deploy a voice AI agent. I actually think that the preparation for this is the hardest part. It's also the longest part in my mind. Once you get to the point where you understand exactly what you want to do, the actual creating the agent and deploying the agent, testing the agent, a lot less, call it time demanding than you would think. So the first absolute thing is, what's the scope? What's the agent supposed to do, right? And by the way, I'm giving you homework because what we're going to do on our next webinar is we're going to go through how to do this. And I will get into, and I'm going to be doing this in our product. So, if you're not using our product, cool. It's not going to stop you from, I think, learning something on how to go through this process. But the scope definition, what is this agent supposed to do? What is this agent not supposed to do? So one of the key things in defining your agent is to also know what the boundaries are for that agent, and to ensure that you've addressed the constraints that you need to have there. Escalation triggers, right? When does it hand off to a human? Intake standards, and in our case, that's going to be, what at minimum, what do we need to ask, right? There may be conditional things. So a network problem versus a phone system problem, I got very different intake questions that I might need. So understanding what intake will I want to start with. Maybe I don't want to do all of them, right? Maybe I just want to start with a few and then move them, widen the scope of what this agent will do later on. Knowledge sources, gather those things up, right? Define what those are, ensure that they're accurate. I think one of the things that we see is people try and throw a lot of information at an agent and think it's just going to kind of figure it out. That's not really good, particularly for a voice agent, because if they've got to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to condense a vast amount of information, it's delaying our response. It's delaying the call. It creates a problem for the actual experience. You want to be probably more prescriptive with your knowledge and eliminate the things that the agent is not going to need, or eliminate the possibility that there may be some conflict in information. So an example might be, I've got sales information on a product and I've got support information on a product. Two very different kinds of information. And if my agent is reading both of those, I might be giving somebody who requires support information, sales information, maybe combined with support information. So it's once you get the hang of it, it's not super confusing, but it is important that this is well thought out before you begin your implementation. Now, this is what we're going to work on next time. This is a basic tech support agent, right? I got an inbound call that comes in. I've got a verification of that caller. I've got a diagnosis of an issue. And then I've got some understanding, what can the agent do next with this? Can it resolve it? No. Does it need to go to a human? Yes. You can do a warm transfer to a human, or you can, this says warm escalation to a technician, but let's just say, for example, really what I want to do is create a ticket because this is after hours. You can go either direction, and that's not the important point. What the important point here is, I got a happy path and I got a sad path. Happy path is I have the thing happening that I'm hoping that's going to happen, and the sad path is the thing that is happening that I didn't necessarily really want to have happen. So I have to have a mechanism for the sad path, because I don't want that call to get trapped in the wrong place. An example of that would be like caller verification. I can verify that, or the agent can verify that caller by doing a dip into the PSA. Cool, we proceed, right? But the sad path is, can't verify that person. Well, what do you want to have happen? In our case, it would be, well, collect the information, create an email, send the email, and then a technician will review it, right? Simple kind of process, right? You just want to sort of think through how your processes are supposed to go. And I have been on calls that I think went way longer than anybody anticipated, because sometimes people didn't come to an agreement on what their process really was. You have three people on a company trying to talk about how after hours calls should be treated. And I've sat through 20 minutes of just trying to figure out, okay, what do we do if we don't verify? How do we handle that? So this is where I say, like, once you get this part figured out, the rest is actually pretty easy. So spend a lot of time up front to make sure you've got the right flow, you've got the right documents or knowledge, and the tooling and the prompting become relatively simple at that point. So yeah, I think this is just a reinforcement of that, where our setup really decides the success of our outcomes. So in the case where you have questions, you're trying to figure out what the right way to think about your processes are. Happy to have a conversation with you. It, Jamie or Harry or Nicholas are all here to help you with that. And if it's something they can't answer, I'm happy to get on a call and work with anybody who has an interest in basically understanding how to get their agent put together. So key takeaways here, this is a new technology, right? And I think it helps us, particularly those of us, who are managing service desks. It helps us deal with problems we've had to just live with for a long time. And so voice AI agents can help automate and help bring a better experience. So the automation part of thing, yeah, it can be cost savings. And, I think there's some scariness around, okay, does that mean I'm going to lay people off? You do not have to do that. I'll tell you the way I would think about this in our environment. People will be allocated to more valuable things, right? The way I see it is, I want to automate those tasks that are low complexity, cost drains on the business, and don't provide a lot of value. And I know MSPs pride themselves on their relationship with their customers. I think the last thing you want to do is to think about your customer relationship in such a way that I'm only dealing with these incidental problems that they call about, like password resets and things like that. I think you're going to want to think about, okay, and deploy my higher resources to be more proactive. Maybe I'm doing more proactive maintenance. Maybe I'm reaching out to these customers, developing a better relationship, reviewing their, in a quarterly basis, reviewing their direction, right? Having a regular meeting with my customers to understand what's coming next in the business adds far more value to your relationship with your customer than a password reset. So, up to you how you want to treat it. And certainly, I think there's opportunities for cost reduction to not have to hire that next tech, but you can think about this in any kind of way that you think best suits your business. So let's talk questions here.
Yeah, we got someone. So Mike asked, can the voice agent be marketed as the solution for small SMBs such as electricians, plumbers, etc.?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So um, I think the way I would think about this, Mike, anybody who makes or takes phone calls, that's a customer, right? That's a potential customer. And why is that? In the cases that you just described, we've got businesses that are heavily dependent actually on phones, on scheduling, right? And the ability to do that via an automated fashion, to possibly follow up, to allow people. I hate having to wait to the next day to reschedule something, right? Like if I got to wait till the business opens at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, I got to call them. That's inconvenient for me. If I found out the night before, I'd rather just deal with it then, right? So there's all sorts of opportunities to automate any of that.
Well, yeah, and I think those are some of the best candidates, right? I mean, I know I had a plumber come to my house and he was just a small one man, plumbing. He didn't have employees. And I remember he was there fixing my sink and his like phone was just going nuts. And he apologized and I'm like, "Well, don't worry, that's customers." And he's like, "Yeah, but I try to be here when I'm with a client instead of being on my phone so I can talk to you about what I'm doing." And so an AI agent would be awesome for a guy like that because then he could get those dispatched into maybe a ticketing system instead of, feeling like he's missing out on everything while he's like doing a job. There's a lot of people that do electric jobs and plumbing jobs and they're like one man bands.
Yeah, yeah. The size of the company doesn't really matter. I think
Yeah.
the value it's experienced differently. But I get my
Hmm.
personal time back in that case versus the business recoups the value of the people's time.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and I
Cool.
see Anil has a question, right?
Yep.
Is that
Says, can this solution be implemented to somebody who already has phones through some other company and they don't want to like move their service over?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I'm just going to say the market would be quite limited for all of us if we were trying to sell a completely bundled solution. There's a lot of value in a completely bundled solution, don't get me wrong. But there are so many people that aren't going to change out infrastructure, have contracts with a UCaaS service already. Some people may be using a CCaaS solution and don't want to upgrade because that's really expensive. And they're just looking for, I need an AI solution to bolt on or layer on top of it. So, yeah, absolutely. Without getting too technical here, it's a very simple SIP authentication to get you connected to whatever phone system or PBX they're using. As long as it's addressable through the internet, you're good. If it's behind a wall, we just have to talk about how we get access.
Cool, cool. And we have an anonymous question. How does the scheduling aspect work? It seems like a lot of what ifs would need to be accounted for.
Yeah. Um, so in a very basic sense, I'm going to take you a very basic, and then I'm going to walk through something that's a little bit more of the what ifs. Um, I have one doctor, one practice, right? One practice location. That doctor has one calendar. I can call in and I can have the agent look into the calendar and book an appointment. Super basic. I'm going to get a little bit more complex. I have one doctor. That doctor provides three different kinds of service. One is a 15-minute appointment, one is a 45-minute appointment, and one is an hour and a half appointment. Now I got a little bit more level of complexity. So let's take this example here and say in our knowledge base, we know how long each of those appointments take. So if I am a caller and I'm asking for, I'm going to use a dentist, right? I'm asking for a cleaning. It's a 45-minute appointment. If I'm asking for a root canal, it's an hour and a half appointment. Now the agent will have reference to the anticipated time. And so that's how you make that connection. Now, I'm going to take it another step further. I got five doctors at the practice, and they each do something slightly different. Again, the process is really the same. The difference is I'm looking up I've got five calendars to access. So the agent just needs to know which calendar belongs to which doctor and which doctor that person is wishing to make an appointment with. There's some logic in between. If that's a new patient, there's a lot of call it variabilities. But fundamentally, it's not that much different than looking up one calendar. It's just pointing to the correct calendar given the intent of that caller and the caller's needs. And then the next question is okay, what services does that doctor provide? Again, the agent can reference that within the knowledge base to know the appointment length. So I think that, yeah, you bring up a really good point. There's things that are low complexity, really simple to do. And that's what I think of like when I think of an AI receptionist. But then, the more difficult things to do are the things we love because we have the flexibility to handle it. But if you're, and I hate to throw them under the bus, but if you're Ring Central and you've got a very limited scope that your agent can actually perform, then you're kind of stuck, right? I've got an agent that can do some basic things, maybe answer some basic questions and transfer to extensions. Some value there, but it's not the full value that a company is really looking to get. Most of the times you're going to see that they've already got in mind how they want to do things. They already know where the data resides. They already know which system they're going to use for calendar bookings and things like that. And the reason they already know is because they probably have somebody already doing that today, and they know what systems they go in. They know what they use today.
Cool. We have another one. Do you have a developer portal which we can design a voice AI agent? Do you already have AI API available? And that was from Haya.
So the answer to your question is this is our Flow Builder product. So Flow Builder will be released probably. So we're finishing up QA towards the beginning of next week. I expect it to be released in 2 weeks. So that is purpose built for I'm gonna call it builder out there, right? So the answer to your question is yes. Give me 2 weeks. We'll demo it for you, show it to you, and I think you're gonna like what you see.
That's really cool. Jeremy asked, do you all have tie-ins with EMR solutions like eClinical Works or Athena Health?
Yeah, so Athena is a good one just because Athena is a little bit more open. eClinical, I believe, is there's a verification process that we'd have to go through to get to eClinical, or use a third party. So when you get into the EMR EHR space, because of HIPAA compliance, you have to go through a verification with each of the applications, or you use a tool. And I'm going to forgetting the name of the tool we use now that has that verification, and we have to use that tool. So I'm going to say the answer to your question is yes. However, it comes in at additional costs. So I just want to put that out there. We can do it to just about any EMR EHR, but there is an additional cost because we have to bake in the cost of that tool for that to meet the compliance. Otherwise, each of the individual applications or each of the individual EMR, EHR will require an application process, and that takes a long time to get.
Yeah. Cool, cool. And then Mike did ask Wayne if you were familiar with GHL, who's marketing similar voice. Mike, I'll maybe assume you mean Go High Level. And I was doing a little Googling over here, and yeah, I mean it seems probably I don't think Wayne, have you ever seen a demo on Go High Level's AI agent? I know I haven't, but I just
I
Googled it. It
have.
looks very similar here.
Yeah, yeah. Just a couple of things to think about, and I don't know, enough about them. The technical underpinnings you want to just understand is the LLM. Are we talking about a multimodal LLM where the audio is directly injected into the LLM? That's one of the more fundamental problems. The other thing you just want to understand is, is there any kind of text to speech conversion going on? That adds to the latency. I'd also suggest that there's a lot of hidden costs that don't get addressed. In what I mean by that is in surprise invoices, right? They're chewing particular that I've heard some very, very egregious experiences. And it's a lot of times has to do with the way they go to market. So the LLM, the STT, the TTS, they all have a cost. And as do some other components, but I'm going to just kind of make it simple here. There's expectations that we all sort of bake into what those costs will be. But if our expectations are wrong, and this is kind of like where you hear about tokens, people using Quad or ChatGPT and going, "Holy cow! I used that many tokens. I didn't realize it." Well, the same can be true in our space where they're not exactly clear or transparent with these third-party services that they use underlying, or they let you select within their platform, and then you get these surprises later on. You go, "Oh wow, I just didn't really understand that that's on." So I'd be kind of cautious on those couple things. The other thing I tell you is a lot of the make it or break it of the success of these things falls to the tools, right? Look for integrated tool platforms or ease of integration to third-party systems. Eddington is a good one. Make.com, if you're talking workflows, those are two pretty good ones. But you also have to know your way around those things to get it done too.
Yeah, and Mike, they don't say what they use, and probably because Go High Level's doing this as like a retail, so they're more like a Ring Central. They're not doing it as like selling it to you as a managed service provider wholesale where you could make margin of it on it. This looks like it's going direct to customer for like retail. Just so, just on my first glance of their website. So
And
cool,
yeah,
cool.
11 Labs. Well, 11 Labs makes great quality voices. They're not the only one. We make several voices available. 11 Labs. I think we've got 160 English voices. I don't remember the exact number, so I apologize if I didn't get that right. But 11 Labs definitely has a representation within the ones that you can choose from. They make good voices.
Yeah, cool, cool. A lot of great questions. Mike said thank you.
Mhm.
All right, let's see what else we got down there. I think that might be all, Wayne. Anybody else? Or if you're too shy to chat, I don't know how you can be too shy to chat, but if you are, you can always email us too, and ask us questions.
Okay. Yeah, and
Oh,
Neil,
pricing info? Yeah.
we'll have somebody reach out to you on that. It'll kind of vary. So we'll have we'll set up a time to go over pricing with you if you want to get a picture for what it is. It's relatively straightforward, but it is based upon how you want to think about your business. Um,
Al, your ticketing system's not Al, why don't I just emailed you, Al. So hit me up with what your ticketing system name is, and you and I will chat about that offline if that's okay.
Cool.
And yeah, we have a great conversational AI analyst is his fancy title, but I call him the king of awesomeness over here. So I'm sure we could make something work for you. He's pretty fancy. Oh, we
Um,
got an. You want
Hi.
me to read that one, Wayne?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
So I think the crux of the question here is do I need a voice engineer or prompt engineer to be able to do this? Um, no, it's helpful to know prompts. We can register ourselves when someone asking. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's helpful to know prompts. It really kind of depends on the depth of what you want to do and the nature of what you're trying to accomplish. At a very basic, and I'm going to take Ring Central as the kind of basic. This is super simple, right? That is configurable in our Flow Builder tool without a lot of technical expertise or knowledge. Plain English works on the prompting side. When you start to get to, and I forget who had asked the question of highly complex scheduling, right? I got a multi-branch, physician's practice with, 50 physicians. Now we're talking in a capacity where you don't necessarily need a developer, but you do need the ability to understand the if-thens of what will happen. And that's where developers tend to be, that logic is something they tend to know well. I will say this, when that kind of thing happens, if we're working with a partner on that, they generally just ask us to help them with that. As Jamie said, we've got people on staff who do this sort of thing, have done it for several years and understand how to do it. So the reality of that is kind of depends on what you want to do. Like real simple voice AI receptionist, not nothing too hard there. You want to just send an email, create a text response after they've call it left a message or done a thing. Pretty easy to do.
Cool, cool. Looks like they're slowing down on their questions, Wayne.
Oh, is it you can connect to us, connect to Ring Central? Yeah, yeah. I don't know if we've done it or not, but the method to connect is a simple SIP authentication, the same as if you were going to register a phone, right? It's going to register very similar to like a device. Okay, I think that's it. All right. Yeah, like we said, happy to get with anybody, have a discussion around what it is you're trying to do, if that's internal or you're thinking about this as a thing you're delivering to a customer. Both of those are we've got a partner program, and then where we've made this available to MSPs who said, "Hey, I don't really want to be in your program, but I do operationally want to do this." We're happy to work with MSPs in either of those avenues.
Cool.
Cool.
Hey, I got distracted by email, Wayne. Did you get that last question?
Jeremy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's our product, Jeremy. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
And like I said, we're going to do another one in a couple of weeks. We're going to get a little bit more into the details of how to actually put together an agent that will handle ticketing.
Awesome. Looking forward.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.